You're listening to The Unstoppables, where each week we show you how to overcome obstacles and transform the sting of failure into the reward of growth. And now, here's your host, best-selling author, keynote speaker, and CEO, Bill Wooditch.
You're tuned into The Unstoppables. This is the place where we take those people who have that unique gene, that success gene. It's the R gene. Resilience, those people that have been dented by adversity but not stopped. Those people who are on the quest for betterment, and by their own choice, they're making the world better by doing those things of value for themselves, for their family, and by extension, for you. Today, my special guest is Don Costa. He's the podcast host of Flip Talk. I was on his show yesterday. He's brilliant. He's also a rehab and real estate expert who's made all the mistakes so he can teach you how to scale your business for a bigger reward. You know, isn't failure the best teacher if you do learn from it? If you don't, it's just an experience. So the man who will intrigue you, who will inform you, who will coach and teach you today, who sits before me, is a successful entrepreneur. But before we get to this, he went through the hero's journey. He crossed the threshold and endured a road of trials, which ultimately led into the abyss, that dark place where you look, and if nothing looks back, you've lost your character, you've lost your way. But Don, before we talk about your metamorphosis and redemption, walk us through your journey. Welcome to The Unstoppables, my friend.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate being here, and love to share my story with your audience. So do you want the high level view, or you want me to go deep here?
You can take me from 30,000 feet, and then I'm going to take you down granular.
All right. So, I'm an entrepreneur by nature. I think, like a lot of people who listen to your podcast or listen to podcasts like this, we're just built differently. You know, we can't be confined to a clock. I knew it from an early age. I wasn't like most people. I was constantly going against the grain, questioning everything. But I came from a family who, worked hard, retired, didn't have a whole lot of money, but, did well, and didn't have that education on how to be an entrepreneur. So like a lot of people who want to do it and dream about it, I was in the same boat. Like I didn't know how to manage money, how to manage people. And, but I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and real estate was the widget. Real estate is where I'm at, as far as what I do to make money. But that's the widget. That's like my thing that I if you go out and create a product, right? So at the core, it's about, just bettering my life. I found real estate as an opportunity after several other businesses didn't work out, and started door knocking, started making really good money, realized I had a knack for talking to people, building relationships, finding their underlying need, and, basically buying the properties. Made a lot of money real easily out of the gate back in 2002, 3, 4, and 5. If you remember the real estate market back then, you could basically throw a rock at a house and turn a profit. I didn't run a good business looking back on it now. I was a bottleneck in my organization. I was a horrible leader, but I was in a market where you could make mistake after mistake and make money. And so I was fooled into thinking that everything I touched turned to gold. I was fooled into thinking that I was the end all be all. And so I started, basically taking the money I was making and investing in other things, other ventures. I opened a property management company, a real estate sales company, a mortgage company. I was investing in a sunglass line. I opened a restaurant and nightclub. I mean, legitimately was doing a ton of stuff because I thought that the money I was making was me and my greatness. And I became basically, for lack of a better term, became a douchebag. I became a tool. I really thought that I was great. And when 2008 hit, because I was arrogant and I was a bad leader, I got schooled hard. I began to hemorrhage money in an unstoppable way. It was money was going through my fingers as fast as coming in. And then the real estate market really shut down about 2008, and I stopped making money and still hemorrhaging money. So over a period of a couple of years, I began to lose everything. And if anybody's ever went through that, you go into this survival mode, you go into this depression almost, where it's like life has slapped you across the face with reality on who you really are and what your capabilities really are and what they're really not. And, some of us, we go through this darkness, this doubt, this fear. And I went through that. I started to, like I said, lose money. I was going to the gas station with quarters just to buy a gallon of gas at a time. I was having to go to the grocery store with a calculator. My wife many times called me from the grocery store because the debit card wouldn't clear and she had a cart full of groceries and couldn't check out. I had a situation. I love telling this story because I think it resonates with people. I had a Saturday morning where it was just, I'd been beaten up and beaten up and beaten up. And I looked at a credit card and I had $90 on that card. I thought available credit versus actual credit are two different things. So I collected my family. We went to Taco Bell. We're going to go to Taco Bell on a movie, and we go into Taco Bell and order the food. And my card gets declined. And I'm standing there in this busy Taco Bell with my family, and my card's getting declined. I tell the kid at the counter, I'm like, no, there's $90. Run it again. He runs it again. Declined. So I look at my wife. I'm like, do you have any money? And she's like, no, I don't have any money. So I had to cancel the order and leave. And that was an interesting moment because, I always like to, point out that as entrepreneurs, we're like rhinos. That's the way we're most likely described in this industry, where, you can throw arrows and spears and we got thick skin and it bounces off. So I walked out of that Taco Bell with my head held high. But my son, holding my hand, jerks in my hand and he says, Daddy, why didn't that mean guy give us our food? And that crushed me to my soul. I realized that I was at that moment, I was trying to hustle and hold everything together. I was looking at the pebbles in front of me instead of the big boulders that I needed to move to make something happen. And I was failing. When I thought I was winning by not losing everything, where, I was holding onto the house and stuff like that. I thought I was winning, but I was really failing everybody around me and the damage I was doing to my family. And that was, that was one of the low moments. A Christmas morning where my 4-year-old son had asked for a specific gift and I couldn't find one that I could afford. And so I wasn't able to get it for him. And I thought, he's 4, he's not going to remember. And the very first thing he said when he woke up is, Santa brought me my remote control motorcycle. And every gift under that tree wasn't it. He threw it aside and he knew the next one's gonna be that motorcycle. And like my soul just sank, right? I mean, I went through these moments and it sank me into like a depression where I literally sat in my couch, in my chair actually, for almost 6 months and did nothing. And just basically self-pity. And I was in probably the darkest place most people would ever be in. I had $1 million judgment against me at a restaurant and nightclub that I had to shut down. So the landlord got me. I couldn't fight him. I had $1 million judgment against me. I had no credit, no money, no hope. And it was one day I just posted, I don't know why, I posted a Craigslist ad looking for somebody. I said basically private, experienced flipper looking for private money lender. If you are close enough to have a cup of coffee, let's meet. And that ad, I'm sure we'll get into it, but that ad was the first step in pulling myself back together and building my life back.
You've given me a lot to talk on. We could
Right.
do this for a couple of weeks, but I want to ask you this question about stepping outside of your zone. And I've done the same thing. I used to think I was the master of that universe like you did. And I found out that when the universe comes around and trues you up, it really slaps pretty hard. Mm-hmm. So when I got outside of my skis and went and did things outside of my core competency, mm-hmm. That's where I messed up. So what would your advice be to the young entrepreneur, the people that are having that kind of success, meteoric success, a lot of flash, a lot of cash right now, boom. What would you tell them about staying true to their core principles and not overreaching?
Well, I would love to say, to them that you need to stay within your core competency. That was my major mistake. I had so many things going on that wasn't true to what I was good at. And I wasn't, my ego got in the way. I wasn't learning to be a good leader. I wasn't learning to be a good business person. I was just throwing money at everything too. And I was being a bottleneck. I mean, that's the worst thing you can do as a leader, as you're building an organization, is be a bottleneck and not trust the people around you, not build systems and processes and a team that you can really count on. Right. And that's not a real business either. And I would love to say all these things to them, but it's, some people are going to hear that and some people are going to be like me. Unfortunately, I had to hit my head against that wall and learn that lesson and realize that like I went through hell because of my foolishness, but I wouldn't change it for the world because it's made me a better business person, a better leader, a better father, a better human being, all the way around. My purpose, my passion, and my principles are different because of it. And I had to learn that lesson. So for those of you who hear it, stay true to your core and don't. Somebody I really respect said something very important as I started growing in the influencer space and stuff like that. And it was weird when people would come up to me and recognize me that I never met. Right? He said this term that resonated. He said, "Don't inhale. Don't inhale." Okay. And that kind of resonates across everything. When you're really successful out of the gate and you're making a lot of money, don't inhale, don't start believing your own garbage.
Mhm.
Just, be true to who you are, be true to your core competency, and realize that it could all end in a second. And make sure that you are preparing for the things that could go wrong while you're enjoying the things that are going right. Now, some people are going to hear that, and some people are going to be like me, and they're going to have to slam their head in the door a few times. But
No, and that's part and parcel of we are our own worst enemy.
right.
And what has made you successful, that drive, that ambition, that believe in anything is possible, can also be that Achilles heel, that downside.
100%.
Oh, and I coach people on this. I say, when I was a kid growing up in Pennsylvania, there was these big nails in this high grass. We build these barns, right? This rustic, bucolic, youth. And invariably we'd be wearing sneakers. Somebody step on that thing, bam. I can tell you there's nails out there. I can tell you they're in the grass, tell you got to wear boots, and tell you have to look. You're not going to believe me. Some won't believe me until they actually step on the nail. I was one of those guys. You're one of those guys. I think that's why we get along.
Right.
Let me ask you about values, about what got you up off that couch from the deepest, darkest place, and values around the kitchen table. Where did you grow up, and what were the values you took away from your parents around that kitchen table that really enabled you to do what you do now, to go forward?
I have an interesting childhood. My mom's been married a few times. Won't get into a lot of it. My grandparents actually raised me. I think that's an important backstory. For the most part, my grandparents raised me. They were my foundation in a lot of ways. My grandmother was devout Christian, church every Sunday, every Wednesday, devotions every Monday, or every morning, I should say. My grandfather worked for General Motors for 30 years and retired. They lived on a 20-acre ranch, basically farm, and raised, livestock, and my grandfather had a garden. And so, I got to experience, I think, just, some of the older generation, right? The old school values, the hard work and stuff like that early on. And it's funny because I wanted away from that so bad, early on. And now I kind of long to be back in that. But my grandfather was extremely patient. They were really good people. They really taught me how to be a good person, I think. And understand the importance of family. And for a period of time, I think I was trying to chase something totally different for a lot of years, until I realized, what I had learned and what I had and how I wanted to establish that in my own home. So that's where I came from. The money side of it, like I said, they weren't super wealthy. I didn't learn the money side of it. I didn't learn the entrepreneur side of it, but I definitely learned the value of hard work, and the value of your word, and the value of just being, a good person. And, I think the value of the memory, like somebody asked me the other day who the most, influential person, most important person, that I looked up to. And I said my grandmother, because, just the way she loved people and accepted people for who they were. You don't see that in a lot of people, these days. And I value that, and I strive to be that person. I don't know if I'll ever become that person to the level that she was, but I strive to be that person.
Well, life is about becoming, and it's a great role model.
Right. Right.
What you just lined out about word is bond, and those values are the values that bring you forward. That's part of a mindset, which is my next question. You talk about an as if mindset. You want to explain what you mean by that?
Yeah. So, for instance, when I had lost everything, right? People try to give me accolades because I came back from it. I posted that out on Craigslist, and it led to events that brought me back business wise. I had hit rock bottom, and if I would have been able to get a job at that point, I may or may not be working in a job right now. I couldn't get a job. 2009, 2010, think about those times where we are economically. I couldn't get a job. I didn't have options. I didn't have money. And I was in this huge depression, and I posted this ad, and I got a few calls, and it just flipped a switch for me. And it's one of those things where it's like, I tell people, you know your value. Everybody has a value in a relationship, and own your value. The as if mindset is important, because you have to act as if you are that person you're going to become. You have to own who you're going to become. You have to act as if you have the life you want to have. And I don't mean fake it till you make it. That's not in any way, shape, or form what I mean when I say that. What I say that is, just know what you want, know who you are, know who you're going to become, and own it, and act as if you already have it. Because that purpose, walking through life with that passion, it breeds momentum. and momentum breeds momentum. And that's what so many people, I think, fail to realize is action breeds momentum, momentum brings momentum, and it takes you where you want to go. And they're just waiting for things to happen to them.
Momentum is one of the hardest things to start. It's one of the easiest things to lose. It is crucial in stepping forward, just like you did. So I want to get into real estate. What advice would you give me as a fledgling? I'm not really going to get into real estate. I get my ass kicked, but just universally. But what would you give me? What advice would you give me if I want to get into real estate right now?
There's so much information out there that if you want to get into real estate right now, action, massive imperfect action is the first thing I would say, and educating yourself and looking, and taking action on opportunities. When I started way back in 2003, YouTube, I don't even know if YouTube existed or it was barely a thing at the time. We didn't have YouTube University. We didn't have podcasts. And we had like Carlton Sheets and you ordered a DVD, it was different. Now there's so much information with podcasts and YouTube. For you to educate yourself, it's important to start listening to those things and finding somebody to follow, and start taking some action. Don't just become analysis paralysis, but start taking action on the information. Find the right mentor once you get to a point where you really want to grow. Find a mentor that resonates with you and is going to help you get to where you want to go. And I think the word mentor gets a bad rap in any industry, but if somebody can shave 2, 3, 5, 10 years off of your journey, there's value in that. There's huge value in that. And that's, finding the right person that you can really resonate with and align with that's going to help you do that would be huge.
My stated mission in the Unstoppables and doing what I do is to shorten that distance and lessen that blood flow and pain from where you are now to where you intend to go. And it's all about things you said. I have some write downs from you. I can tell you this would be a great chapter of one of your books. You got some good write downs. I like that. Confined to a clock, and you're not confined to a clock. Which means it's wide open, baby. You've got to do the work, and the clock comes off the wall because you're not on that gold watch 8 to 5 truck. You're not looking for a job. You're creating opportunity. And you also said that you have to own your value, which is huge in owning your self-respect and not allowing the external to define your success or take away your self-respect. You're the only person that can give that away or cede that to another person. And 3, you said educate yourself. It's an ongoing quest for improvement. So I think those are 3 big bullet points in one of your next books that's going to definitely be a bestseller.
Appreciate that.
Give me a common myth about your profession that you want to debunk.
Okay. So you hear these late night TV commercials for years, right? Where no money, no credit, no this, no that. And some people will think that's a myth, and it's actually true. I mean, there are strategies in this business that you can actually get into making your first check or even building an entire business around, not even owning properties, where you can actually lock up the property and sell the interest in that contract that you have to another investor and make the difference, make a profit. And you can do that literally with no money. If you have the willingness to do a little hustling, do a little leg work, you can make that happen. So that is, a lot of people think that's a myth, and that there's actually truth to that, and there's quite a bit of truth to that. There's businesses that their whole business is around not even owning the property itself. So I'm a rehabber as well. I rehab and fix and flip properties, and I do own them, and I do manage contractors and all that kind of stuff. But I also have the strategy in our organization where we make money basically selling the paper. So and it's a great way to make money in this business. It's not as hard as people think. I think that's the other myth. People think it's hard, and any business that you really want to have takes work. This whole thing about done for you, push button, shiny object, it's not, it doesn't exist. It's not real. It's not sustainable. Any real business takes work. I mean, it takes work in becoming just a better leader, educating yourself, learning how to run and manage a business, learning how to not be consumed by your business and having it turn into a prison. And then the fundamentals of what keeps your business consistent and lasting, over time. So, that's, I can go on and on and on, but
You had me at prison because if you don't have the structure of the process and the people to run the structure and the process, set up the structure, run the process, you will create a system of your own making.
100%.
You'll find out that you're not an owner, you're an indentured servant. And so that's my big question for you is, The mistake of the past was you were the problem. You looked in the mirror. Whoa, I am the bottleneck here. I'm trying to control everything. There's a book. It's an older book, probably 20, 25 years. It's called The Goal. And it talks about the goal of any organization is to make money for the shareholders.
Right.
And the biggest thing you got to remove in there is the bottleneck. So when you're the bottleneck, what are you doing differently this time because you had the lessons of failure as your guide?
Well, I think it's important to understand that as entrepreneurs, we're control freaks by nature. And that's a battle, internal battle within, not to
Really?
be that. Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, because we're the scrappers. We're the ones that are like, we're digging the dirt. We're building the bricks. We're laying the foundation, and we don't usually have help. Usually when we start doing it, everybody's fighting us, right? Everybody's trying to tell us it can't be done, and we're proving them wrong. And
They're going to kill you in the crib.
yeah. And then we carry that with us into our organization. We got to realize we got to shed that at some point, because if you don't, what happens is you do build a prison, you become a bottleneck, and you build a team that doesn't function without your permission. And that's not a recipe for success. So what I do differently now is, I hire the person first. I hire the person and not the experience. I hire somebody who's teachable and coachable. And then I develop them. I build them into the team member that I need in that organization. I allow them to fail, because how did I learn? So many employees are afraid to fail, and so many leaders are afraid to let their employees fail. How did I learn? I learned by failure. I learned by making mistakes. So, my team, obviously I don't want them failing and failing and failing, making the same bad decision over and over again, but they are allowed to make mistakes. It's not job ending. It's, are you learning from that mistake? And does that make you a better employee? And that's how we run our organization. That's our culture. And then I get out of their way. And I trust them to be what I hired them to be. And I have faith in their decision. And that's a hard transition. It's easier said than done. I'm not going to say it happened overnight, but you have to do it. You have to get out of their way and let them be successful, let them excel, let them prove to you their value. And that's something I've learned, and I do it. And I have a great team that does incredible things. I don't have to be here to run my organization. I can trust them to run it the way I would run it, or better. And that's an important part to having a real business and long-term business.
And that doesn't mean you're an absentee owner. Quite the contrary. It's especially for me. The first 3 years, I was that control freak. I had to.
Right.
I was the one ordering things from Costco in addition to closing the $1 million deals. I was doing everything in between, checking everything, just incredibly just immersed in the whole process. I went to Australia on vacation. Got a call from a client and thought, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be on vacation and I'm working. That's when I changed the structure, the process, put people in control of things that were great in those things, and took up 2 major steps back and started to learn to unwind that. Because at first you've got to protect it. You're going to lose that child if you don't. When it gets to the adult stage, if you're going to get to that adult stage, you got to have people that are pulling with you. You can't be the only one. And I'm preaching to you who's in the same church. So you mentioned people. And if you enable people to fail and to learn and to fail forward, and they're not ethical errors, they're mistakes because they're actually learning and moving forward and doing those things on their own, you're empowering people. So what do you take, say it's an opportunity right now, what people skills do you need? How critical are they in your industry, and especially to what you do to be successful, one-on-one, people to people?
What people skills do I need, or does my team need?
Do you need?
Well, for me right now, at the level I am in my organization, I'm more just trying not to break things, to be honest with you. So,
Great strategy.
Yeah. So I'm trying not to break things and trying not to mess up what I built. And then of course I'm doing, podcasts and stuff like that, trying, to give back to the community and just make an impact on the world. So, on a lower level, I guess, if, down in the weeds, for my role in the organization, we deal with a lot of private money investors, lenders, stuff like that. Maintaining relationships and making sure that people know that they're valued, making sure my team knows that they're valued, making sure that the external relationships with some of the contractors we work with, touching bases with them and making sure that they know they're a valuable part of the team, and that I know that their contribution, I think, is a huge part of what I do. And the people skills, recognizing that people will work for a living, but they'll die for recognition, and making sure that I'm taking the time to communicate that I see them, that I recognize the contribution, I think is really, as a leader in where I stand now, is an important part of what I do people wise.
Step back You walk in, you have a buyer. What do you want to convey? What message does Don Costa want to convey to that buyer immediately?
So on the buyer side, okay, so we work with sellers and buyers, right, on our properties. I would say on the seller side, we need to convey that we're there to solve a problem. You know, that we are empathetic to the needs, to what they're going through, that we're there to understand what it is that they want to accomplish, and that we're there to solve a problem. That's an important part of the sales strategy and the people strategy, is we're not just there about numbers. We're not just there to be transactional. We're really there to serve. And if we're not the best option, to be able to communicate that we're not the best option right out of the gate, and not to try to hammer a square peg into a round hole. On the buyer side, when we're working with wholesaling, which is, you know, basically selling the rights to the contract to an end buyer, that's more B2B, and it's still relationship based. We still need to understand their needs. We still need to understand what it is they're trying to accomplish with their business, and make sure that, you know, they know that we are always, you know, working hard, obviously to protect our interests as a business, but to make sure that we're serving them as well, and not making them feel like a commodity either. Because relationships, they're just huge. I don't want to say I know. Relationships in any business, and especially in this business, they're just huge, and it's really relationship based. If you're not in it from a position of service, you're not going to be in it for a long time.
Huge point. Huge point. And you got to be able to tell people what you're not and walk away early without wasting their time and yours. And it's the square
Right.
round hole theory, 100% with that. You are dripping some great content. And if people want to find more of you, where can they find you?
Yeah, well, I have the podcast called Flip Talk. I have a second podcast called the Flip Talk Review Playbook. You can find it on Stitcher and iTunes and Google Play, and just about anywhere you can find podcasts. Spotify. You can find me at the Real Don Costa on Instagram, and I am all over Facebook. I have pages and groups, and you name it. You can also email me at don@fliptalk.com. I do respond to questions on email, not as quickly as, you know, I would like to, but I do respond to them.
How do you define success in your terms?
Success for me at this point where I'm at in my life is not about pretty things. It's not about big houses and shiny cars and that kind of thing. Success for me is, you know, do I have the freedom, you know, to do what I want to do with my life, to spend the time with my kids? Can I go and take a month off? Yeah, I usually take July, you know, the half of June and most of July off every single year. We go camping for a week. We go to the beach. We go to Disneyland, and I get to build memories with my family on my terms and still make money. That to me is success number one. The impact that I'm trying to make on the world at this point in time, which I'm sure you can feel me on this. When my funeral happens, I want 10 people in that room to say to my boys and my daughter, your dad did or said or impacted me in a way that changed my life. That's legacy.
Yeah.
And that's success to me.
So,
yeah, it's twofold.
No, that is awesome. That's, you know what I say, Don, you're the only person I've ever heard say this in a way that I said it. I said, I have lived my life as close to my terms as within the social constraints of decorum as it possibly could. And I try to live with that. No regrets, do it now, do it responsibly. Yeah. And I work for my freedom every freaking day, man. It sounds like an oxymoron. I work for my freedom. That was excellent. I would guess this, don't want to put words in your mouth. What's your defining moment? I think I have it, but tell me where your defining moment was, that thing that just turned you from, wow, this is a crucible for me. I'm going to move forward and go through it. Here's my epiphany, and here's what I'm going to do. What was your defining moment?
The Taco Bell and the Christmas, you know, moments in my life were really the defining moments. It wasn't when I was failing. We get in survival mode and we look at these pebbles, like I said, instead of the big boulders we can move to make things happen. We focus on the pebbles and we don't really move forward. And I was in that, and I thought I was winning. And, you know, my house is in and out of foreclosure, and I'm playing Russian roulette with the utilities. And I mean, I can go on and on and on about the stories, but I felt like I was hustling and holding it together. And you can't be successful and make money and be a hustler. You can't have the mentality and do both. It's one or the other. And it was when I realized I was failing my family, when I realized the impact I was making on them, and I was letting them down, and I was having these regrets, these moments that on my deathbed, I'll remember that looking at my son's face when that present wasn't under his tree. That's the stuff that really drove me to pull myself back together and make something happen.
What's next for you? What's your next mission? What are you going to do?
My next mission is to impact as many lives as I can. Like I said, I'm an entrepreneur first. I want to make sure that people know that the dream is still real and that they can have it. They got to be able to get rid of that voice in their head that tells them they can't. And I want to impact lives. I want to make lives better, and like I said, it's a legacy thing for me. That's my mission at this point in time.
You live to be 130 years old. It's time for that funeral. So if you could write one paragraph so people could take and learn from it, that legacy walk-off paragraph, what would that paragraph look like?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot for that one.
Go ahead.
Like I said, I want, just the fact that we're how they say we're 2 generations removed from being forgotten, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want my children's children to know that I made an impact. I want them to know who I was. I think that's what's huge about the podcast is they're going to be around forever, right? And they're going to know my voice and my purpose, my passion, and everything behind it, who I was. And so I think that that paragraph would just I think it'd be just simple. He made an impact. He changed the lives of the people around him in a good way. And he never stopped doing it until the day he died. I mean, I think that's important.
Don Costa, he's the podcast host of the wildly successful Flip Talk. My name is Bill Woodich, trying to be that on the Unstoppables. Catch me on Apple, Stitcher, iTunes, and all those places where really quality podcasts can be found. Until next time, my friends, be safe. Remember, you work for your freedom. There's a cost. Make sure you're willing to pay that cost if it has value for you. Until next time, be safe.
You've been listening to The Unstoppables. If you liked today's episode, please consider subscribing. We have a new episode every Thursday. Please help spread the word of the show by leaving us a positive review on iTunes or Stitcher. Those 5-star reviews really help out the show. You can subscribe to The Unstoppables on iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher to stay up to date on the latest episodes. Thanks again for listening. Always forward.